Okay, welcome to episode 2 of the On the Court podcast. Welcome back. Thank you as always for listening. And I'm going to this episode with a smile on my face and feeling pretty good. Okay, as a Lakers fan right now with 2 wins on our backs in the last 2 games, I'm feeling pretty good. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, surely you're not that happy about the fact that you won against two teams that we don't regard as good. Well, that's the current state of affairs as a Lakers fan. Is you gotta take what we can get, and this is a good step in the right direction. And especially being a Westbrook fan, it was rough in the start of the season. Okay, listening to everyone talk about how they shouldn't have traded for him, how he's spent, how he's just turnovers are crazy, how he's not a winner, how he's just a stat machine, all this kind of, in my opinion, crap that was being said. When if you're a Westbrook fan, you know that when he goes to a new team, he does have a slow start and then he kicks into gear. And that is exactly what has happened again this year. And I've said it time and time again before as well. Yes, is he on paper the greatest fit with the Lakers, with LeBron James, with AD? No. Okay, but saying that over and again to nauseam, it's just not doing anything because the Lakers team are starting to seem to come together. And when you even look at like Westbrook's numbers in the last 10 games or so, let me just try and bring it up. What I read was about 29 points per game, about 10 assists per game, 9 rebounds, so close to a triple-double. His field goal percentage is about that 54%, 36 from free, which is pretty good for him. I mean, it's average for the general populace in the NBA, but it's good for him. And 84% free throw percentage. And that is, that's a pretty good bounce back from the start of the season where people were looking and nitpicking at things, like the turnovers and the efficiency and all that sort of stuff. But it's starting to pick up. And Westbrook, I could make the argument, has been the best player in the Lakers in the last few games. He's, as always, going to put it in his all. Now, the rest of the team has been coming together. AD is starting to come into his own and starting to show the glimpses of the old AD that we know. Dwight Howard, who I always like cheering for because he's just a fun guy. Dwight Howard, he came into his own in the last game, although I have no idea why Vogel even went into it saying that he's not going to be playing because, look, he should be starting in my opinion, and that's not only my opinion. So no, things are starting to mesh for the Lakers. Monk is starting to find his flow. We're not putting in people like, Ken Bazemore in the rotation, which was, watching games with some of the players and what they were doing was rough. It was nice seeing Rondo back in the mix. So I don't care what people say, okay? Because I'm feeling good about the 2 wins and the fact that our last win was a bit of a revenge game against that free overtime loss, which was disheartening. I will say it time and time again. And so I'm feeling pretty good. And it was our first solid kind of slamming win that we've had because we won by 25 points. And it wasn't against one of the top tier teams, but I don't care. It's, I think, a good step in the right direction, a good motivator for them, which I believe they need some kind of spark lit under them. And especially now with LeBron out, it shows us that they can play defense when they want to. They can play even when LeBron's taking this time off, unfortunately now because of COVID. And things like that is a good sign. Because when you're relying on LeBron in his year 19, it's not going to be a good situation if it's a team that has aspirations to win the championship. So there's positives there to grab. So that's all I want to talk about is Lakers, 2-win streak. I'll take it. Westbrook showing definite improvements and silencing the haters. It's fun looking at the comments and how people are now starting to, say praise on him rather than all the negativity. And when you look at the numbers, come on. If you were the the GM, if you were whoever was involved in the team, you would not be taking Buddy Hield over Westbrook as much as Buddy Hield might have been a better fit on paper because Westbrook at the end of the day makes shit happen. Okay, he makes winning happen, and it's not always going to be the most efficient, but that's just something we have to live with. And sometimes he won't have the best game from the floor, but at the end of the day, he's going to get you games where you're going to win and put all the effort he can and bring the team together, just like LeBron did, just like the team needs to do as a whole. So just wanted to start by saying that I'm feeling good about that. I'll take it. I'm looking forward to seeing how we play against the Clippers tomorrow, and it's going to be an interesting game. Okay, I'm really, really looking forward to that one. So that's all I want to talk about the Lakers today in Westbrook. We'll see how the next couple of games go. I'm looking forward to it, but right step in the right direction in my eyes. Now let's go on to the Suns versus the Warriors. Now that game was a bit different than what I expected. Now I was dabbling between watching that one and watching the Lakers, so I wasn't, watching both games, completely. I was watching obviously more the Lakers, sue me, but I'm gonna watch the team that I'm going for more. Okay, that's just the way it's gonna go. But I did, watch this Suns and Warriors and watch some highlights and just looked into it afterwards. And yeah, Steph didn't have a good night. I mean, the worst shooting night when he's taking 20 or more shots, it wasn't good. I mean, it was just not the Steph that we know. But the thing is that we got to realize is when these players are not always going to be on the top of their game every single game. And at the end of the day, you got to praise also the fact that defense prevailed. Okay. So Mikal Bridges did what he needed to do. The team as a whole, the Suns, did what they needed to do. They played great defense. They executed, even with Devin Booker leaving in the first half with the hamstring injury, which is unfortunate for him and unfortunate for his team. I think, if I remember correctly, it might be the same hamstring that was niggling last season. Okay, I think it might be the same one. But yeah, that was unfortunate, but they brought it together and they came out through with the win. And when you think about it, even with Steph's poor shooting night, they only won by, I think less than double digits. So it was a different game than what I expected. I was expecting this firing power from both Steph and from Booker and just a rough game from all ends. But in the end, it turned out different. It'll be interesting to see how Steph bounces back when they go to San Francisco to verse them there, in the coming days. But yeah, all in all, Steph's shooting night, it's one of those things that even hot shooters, even the best shooters in the world, they're going to have nights like that. And it is what it is. And in saying all that, what I'm going to do now is something a bit different. Is I'm going to kind of tell you what I think would happen if they met in a series. Okay, so in a playoff series, if they met, who do I think would win? Now, I'm going to base this on the fact that I'm on the assumption that Clay is going to come back and it's going to be at least, a good amount of the old Clay that it was, and that Wiseman's going to come back and provide that size that they need in that team, which they don't have as much size. Looney comes in here and there, but, they need more size. So with all that said, assuming all teams are healthy, who do I think will win? I think it would actually be quite a close series. But honestly, if I were to put my money on who would win, at the end of the day, I believe just with the championship pedigree, the experience, all that sort of stuff that comes away with the Warriors' current roster, I believe the Warriors would come out on top. I just do. I mean, Steph Curry right now is, you can argue him or Kevin Durant are the best players in the world. You could, make whatever argument you want there, but he's at the top of his game now. He's back to the Steph of old after, those couple of years where things were slipping up, obviously, for obvious reasons. But I think that the Warriors would come out on top on a close 6 to 7 game series. I honestly do, but that doesn't mean that I can discount the Suns. I mean, they were the West Coast representatives in the last finals. That cannot be understated. And you got to give them the respect. As much as I'm not a Suns fan, I just, I follow them, as much as I can, but they're not my top team. They don't excite me as much as other teams. I can say that comfortably. But do I think they would win over the Warriors in a 7-game series where the Warriors and the Suns are at the top of their game? No, I think the Warriors would still come out on top, for a number of different reasons, but specifically the ones I just mentioned. At the end of the day, you got to realize the Suns are still a young team. As much as they have, Chris Paul doing his thing, his experience building that and bringing that team together and doing wonders for that team. At the end of the day, I think Steph Curry, with the team that he has, would come out on top. He's just making his players better. Jordan Poole the other day kept them above water. Okay, kept them in the game. You've got Andrew Wiggins, who's playing, really, really good basketball, and finally now he can be himself, where he's not the one that's been. The pressure's not on him to be the best player. The pressure's not on him to be the one that's going to take the mantle and take the team to a win. It's the one that's going to be a great sidekick in some sense, providing the numbers and playing his game. So overall, I say Warriors win that series, but we'll see. Okay, at this rate, they're going to be 1-2, so they're not going to meet, if at all, until the conference finals. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. So now the third topic for today is that we're going to talk a bit about Brooklyn. So I was watching the Brooklyn game with New York. Very close game, very exciting there at the end. Okay, very exciting. And, Kevin Durant did his thing, took over late in the quarter and got them through with the win. And obviously, Harden, in the last couple of games has shown a bit more glimpses of the old Harden and has played quite well. And, with his put back dunk was a fun thing to watch. I don't think I've seen him that happy in many, many years. He just looked ecstatic. Okay, ecstatic doing that put back dunk. So yeah, the things are starting to mesh a bit better. And after, the first episode, if you've listened to it already, I did mention how Brooklyn, even though they're on the top of the East Conference, they just weren't looking, in my opinion, as a definitive favorite in the East, a definitive contender to actually win the championship over the other teams. But now they're starting to mesh a bit more. They're starting to look a bit more nice. But even then, I still don't put them above some other teams. And I still feel like that they've got some things to work out. Harden just needs to take more serious care, in my opinion, from a perspective of his weight and his health and his fitness, because he seems like someone that, and I could be wrong, because I don't know these players personally. Okay, I'm not going to be I'm obviously not a media personality in that sense, but I'm not going to be one of those media personalities where I make assumptions on players and use it as gospel when I don't actually know. So he could be putting in the work, but he seems like someone that more so gets into shape through playing and training and doing stuff like that, just playing the game and kind of getting his flow back in. He doesn't look like the fittest he's ever looked. He's got, steps, too slow compared to what he has been in the past. And obviously he's got a slightly different role than what he has in the past, because he used to be the number one shot taker. He used to be the number one option on offense, when now you can argue that is going to be Kevin Durant for obvious reasons. So his role's a bit different. He's showing glimpses that he has that potential to really drive this team forward, and had some nice numbers, but I still want to see more for them. But I am looking at it from a more positive note, and I can start seeing that they're getting back to that fierce contender that everyone was fearing at one point. But just right now, I can still see glimpses where they could come and fall off short. That's all I'm saying there. Okay, but it's exciting to see Harden starting to get back into his flow, starting to find excitement back in the game, which, for the first part of the season, it just didn't seem like he just was not excited about the situation. Just things were just a bit meh, in my humble opinion. So that's Brooklyn. Okay, that's my chat on Brooklyn. But I will say, and I agree with Kendrick Perkins, I believe I saw his tweet, if they have a series with New York versus New York, okay, so we've got Brooklyn versus the New York Knicks, that's going to be an exciting series. It's just, New Yorkers are very passionate about their basketball, and when you have two teams in the one city and then battling for it, and it would be a very exciting series, I believe. So we'll see how that goes. But that's all I want to say there. And then now we're going to finish up today about talking a bit about the Heat. Now, as you know, Heat's my favorite team on the East Coast. They're the ones that I'm going for that side of things, even though Lakers are the ones I'm mainly going for. So I quite like the Heat. I like Jimmy Butler. He's one of my favorite players. I'm quite fond of the Heat. I went for them a couple of years ago when they were in the finals, all this sort of stuff. They've surprised me in the last couple of years. They have. Pleasantly surprised me. Okay, they've really impressed me. But right now, with losing Bam to the injury, it's rough. Okay, it's rough because now they've lost, they don't have a huge amount of options when it comes to size. You've got Dedmon, but he's doing his thing in his role. He's doing what he needs to be done, and he's doing it well enough, but it's not going to be the same as having Bam. Okay, so they needed someone big there to really play that role, and now I feel like PJ Tucker might take up that role, which he has taken up in the past when he was in the Rockets. I remember when I was following the Rockets a couple of years ago when Westbrook was there, and they were playing small ball, but PJ Tucker was the one that was playing the five and all that sort of stuff. So do I feel like PJ Tucker is going to take on the big man role? Potentially. We'll see how it goes. I mean, he is Iron Man in some sense, as people do keep saying. But at the end of the day, he is about, 6'5", so he's a bit taller than me. And I can just imagine it's not an easy role, especially with some of the big teams out there. You've got the Bucks, which are a big team in general. It's going to be rough. So it's going to be unfortunate for them in terms of losing Bam. And even Bam in himself he plays big, but he's not like the classic big man. It's going to be interesting, but in a bad way for me at least, and for the team obviously, to see how things mesh in the next few weeks, until we find out more about what's happening with Bam's surgery on his hand and how long that's going to take him out for. And when you got Duncan Robinson playing like he did in that last game, I mean, let's hope that that's just like that rare instance, like what happened with Steph Curry, and then that was way worse what happened to Duncan. Let's just hope that that's temporary, because you cannot have someone who's your sharpshooter on your team having a game like that and expecting to make an impact in the East. You just can't. So let's hope that things are starting to mesh. Let's hope Jimmy Butler's back, and then we got Kyle Lowry doing his thing, and that things just start to mesh a bit more, and then we can continue that trend there. But it's not looking great with the loss of Bam. It's a big blow, and I hope it gets well very soon. But that's the 4 topics I want to talk about today. I mean, the thing is, I try and catch as much NBA as I can, but as you would know, I'm a sports statistician. So that's my primary job. This is something that I'm doing as a side thing for now, and trying to share my opinions on the NBA. So I can only watch so many games. I can only give my take on so many games, and I'm sure you wouldn't want to sit here and listen to me ramble on about every single team. But they're the kind of key things that came about from the last week or so. Yeah. Other things that kind of stood out was the ending on that Bucks and Hornets game, which I wish I watched. I'll be honest, I didn't watch live. I looked at it, I was like, it'll probably be just a basic game. I didn't expect it to end like that and be that tight. So it's unfortunate that not watching that. I was watching another game which wasn't as fun. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. And I'll catch you very soon again, give you more updates and new takes on what I'm looking at from the season. So now I'm off to go watch the Bulls versus the Knicks. That's going to be an interesting game. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon. And until then, see you on the court. Thank you for listening to my podcast. Now, if you enjoyed today's podcast and if you enjoy what I talk about, exploring the world of the NBA, I would appreciate it heaps if you can go on Apple Podcasts and leave me a 5-star review. But until then, I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye.